What's good, YouTube, and welcome to the house. This format has a lot of you guys wondering, what's the best deck now that Spirals is gone? Spirals definitely induced a lot of hand traps into the metagame, and let's face it, things are different than when Pendulum Magicians were reigning dominant just a month before, because evenly matched is here. Pendulum Magicians have to commit scales to the board. Even if they're making Omegas to rip apart the hand turn one, they definitely are committing back row to the board to have gotten there, and their Time Pendulum Graph, Star Pendulum Graph, they're gonna lose a lot of cards to evenly matched. And the other decks all got set rotation hit to 1 as well. So set rotation was the hard counter to evenly matched. Should you try to enter that battle phase going second without committing any cards to the board, not only are you going to lose your battle phase to this card previously, because it would put a card on field and you couldn't activate evenly matched to the hand, you might have been locked out of being able to use a field spell, depending on what field spell they gave you. So these are more so my honorable mentions. Usually I do honorable mention decks here, but I want you all to keep in mind that evenly matched from Circuit Break is running around during this top 10, and we have a new set being introduced soon too. But in the number 10 position, Dante is still running around. He topped the regional in Pendulum Magician format with Ken Fuller, where that's featured on the channel. Managed to take 8th place at the Indianapolis Regionals. We also saw it top with Michael Forner in Spiral format, but realistically I feel the more hand traps were played, the stronger Dante got, especially when nobody was taking him seriously enough to put him in the extra deck for Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. So moving towards YCS San Diego, it should be interesting to see how many people take up the mantle of the Burning Abyss still with Spirals gone. I feel like it was a better deck against Spirals than decks like Pendulum Magicians, but they really also commit to the board, so I feel like evenly matched kind of does a number, leaving just kind of one Xyz on the board that is Dante or Beatrice. In the number 9 position, let's not forget we have a brand new set coming out, Magic Bullets. Tons of people thought this deck would do way more than it did in the OCG, but it's about to enter a metagame that it has never seen before from the OCG, a ripped wide open, spiral-free format. It should be really interesting to see what it does, but as a control deck, I feel like it's going to face issues from the TCG that it never faced in the OCG. Remember, we are different formats. So I really will look forward to how it interacts, but I personally don't think it has what it takes to get further in the top 10. If you guys think it's a more dominant deck than I'm giving it credit for after you see the rest of the decks, let me know in the comment section down below, but I personally just don't think it has the gusto to push its way through in our format. And in the number 8 position for me, a deck I never want you guys to forget, and personally, in my opinion, better control deck that really abuses evenly matched to get its tempo going when going second, and doesn't mind if it goes second, Paleozoic. Paleozoic definitely is okay with chilling back, getting a 6th card and letting you set up, because you're going to be setting cards and, you know, trying to activate your draw cards. It's not going to be as dependent on going first as other decks. And I think it's an amazing control deck that has always done more in the TCG than it has over in the OCG. You can't leave this deck on a back burner. There's a reason Denko has so many amazing moments in this game, and this deck is certainly a reason that Denko sees side deck play over and over and over. So an amazing deck, not to be forgotten, and I think we might even see other mixes that we've never seen before in this format, such as let's just see. FAP was a thing. Frog, Paleozoic, Artifact Paleozoic. But I think we might see it even more dominant in the meta than before. And in the number 7 position, we have the True Dracos. I highly overestimated this deck initially from the other ban list. And I don't want to make that mistake again with Spirals. I think Spirals have been hurt, but not out of the picture. The True Dracos are still here running around. They're going to lean on the crutches of other decks, such as the Invoked, such as ABC. True Draco ABC is a thing, but I think overall as an engine and a deck, it's taken more of a back seat. There's already jokes, masterpiece unaffected by the ban list, and I think it's hilarious, but at the same time it is scary to think about this card and the fact that Kaiju's consistency have gone down with one slumber. So I do expect to see this deck still running around the top cut as it did in the previous format before Spirals. And speaking of them, in the number 6 position, as I already hinted, I think Spiral as an engine will continue to run. I don't think pure Spirals will be as much of a thing with quick fixes at 1, drone at 1. The consistency is just not there in my opinion, but Spirals as an engine to be combined with other decks, I think is there. That field spell is just so searchable still with 3 terraforming. It protects the Spirals on board. It allows you to do plays without committing too much to the field, and I really do think as an engine we'll figure out how Spirals are going to continue, but I don't want to put it too high. I didn't want to put it too low. So let me know if you think this is too low for Spirals, if you think it's still going to be doing even more than this. But I realistically think the next 5 decks have a bit more consistency. And in our number 5 position, we have the ABC. Speaking of consistency, there's a deck that does it. It got first place at a regional right before Spiral Weekend, ripped open the meta. And I think ABCs are going to come back again and show what they can do. Infinity's no joke. Buster Dragon's no joke. There's still so many ways for this deck to work. And even with that Gofu hit was pretty big. They're still going to have ways with Hanger Gadget to be able to get out there with the Code Talker and Buster Dragon, the Code Talker, Infinity, just certain plays and insane nutty boards with consistency. But again, the deck does have its problems with the Brick Squad hands. The deck does suffer with its field spell when it's hit by a hand trap, and we just left the hand trap heavy format. There's no telling how much hand traps will still impact this, and it definitely is a deck that gets hurt by evenly matched a lot. Tagging out Buster doesn't save you there. And in our number 4 position, the deck that was most dominant alongside Spirals in the OCG, Infernoids. Don't sleep on this deck. Lithium has up a profile of the deck that got 3rd place at the Mega Regional using Infernoids. This deck also under PPG owners George Machetes won the giant card at the YCS where full power Spirals were in the side event. People didn't play in the main event just to play in the side event for the giant card, but George Machete eked out that win with Infernoids. Infernoids are not to be slept on. They got the new Fire King. It was Ganesha in the OCG. You might have known it by that name. It is now Fire King Avatar Avarta, I believe. But Infernoids have so much power, so much consistency, not even at 60 cards, that we will continue to see 40 card Infernoids do something in this meta. Don't sleep on it. I expect it in the top cut at the YCS in San Diego. If it's missing from it, I would be truly shocked, because this deck really does have a consistency factor among its Brick Squad hands as well. Almost every deck has Brick Squad hands, but Infernoids are able to fight out of them relatively well. Charges at 3, so you have even more ways to mill in this format. I just think you cannot be sleeping on the Noids, and the market's speaking to that too. In the number 3 position, a deck you all might have expected to be up here, maybe higher, maybe lower, Trickstars. Trickstars were not touched in the least. We still have 3 Trickstar Reincarnation, 3 Droll and Lockbird, the ability to wipe a hand, the ability to do so much burn damage. It is a crazy deck, but they do suffer consistency for their second pushes. They have problems getting over those giant monsters should they not wipe your hand out. And while we saw it top YCS Dallas, where was it in the YCS London top cut? It did win the Mega Regional, however, over there. And I think that this deck, through a tournament, can really crap out on itself. But that's a lot of decks. I also think the deck blows its load, in a sense, before evenly matched is a problem for it. And then it recovers better than most decks as well. But in the number 2 position is still Pendulum Magicians for me. I underestimated this deck heavily in the previous format, and even with evenly matched at 3, you gotta hard draw that card. And Pendulum Magicians are gonna continue to get 2 Omegas out, so on top of that evenly matched, they're gonna deal with several 2,800 bodies that can still phase in and out of the field. So Pendulum Magicians, I would not sleep on them. They're my favorite deck currently to still play with. I play it all the time on streams, but it is harder and harder for this deck to continue on, which is why it's not in my number 1 position. My number 1 position may surprise you all. It is my personal call to win YCS San Diego and finally take its W, the Invoked. I think without a shadow of a doubt, this is the most consistent deck. It cares about evenly matched the least because you get the resource of Alistair back to your hand before they ever evenly match you, meaning you're going to get a fusion in the next turns, even if they take care of your field. Also, being able to set up with real back row for when you don't get evenly matched, the consistency and ability of this deck is not on second par to any of these decks, in my opinion. I truly do believe we will see Invoked really make it up there, if not win YCS San Diego. It's my pick. What about you guys? Do you feel like I'm overselling this deck? It's the only deck to top both of the YCSs. Even though it was 1 slot in both, I think that it's really proving itself. And it mixes well with engines such as the True Draco. So it may lie on the crutch of another deck. It may not be pure Invoke to do it, but I definitely think you should not be sleeping on this deck, and that it will be up there in the amount of decks we see at YCS San Diego. So thanks for watching, guys. What did you guys think of this top 10? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What's missing from this list? Let me know, because I usually do the honorable mentions, but I just didn't this time. I wanted to really emphasize evenly matched and its presence from the previous format so that you guys know it's not just a carbon copy of what happened before. Let me know what you would have and what orders you would change in this list.